holding up the number 5. And that represents for the Indians their 5 All-Stars. You see the different names there? You got Jose, Corey-Kluber. You've got Frankie-Lindor. You have Trevor-Bauer. And you have, just checking, there's so many, you even have to go back and look, and Michael-Brantley. Now, if you think about this, these guys all came to the Indians in different ways. Lindor was a number 7 draft pick, first round, 7th overall in 2011. In that same draft, the number 3 pick overall was Trevor-Bauer. He was taken by Arizona. In fact, the Indians were so intrigued by Bauer before that draft that I know that Chris Antonetti and some other members of the front office interviewed Bauer personally. Oftentimes it's just a scouting director or whatever, but in this case was the general manager went out to UCLA to talk to Bauer. So already even before the 2011 draft, they had Bauer on their radar screen. And that happens sometimes. You have a guy you really want, another team beats you to them in the draft, and you think, if I ever get a chance to trade for him, I'm going to do it. And in 2013, the Indians did just that. So in that draft where they took Lindor in 11, where Bauer went number 3, in 2013, the Indians worked a 3-way deal, Chris Antonetti's thing, and they've got Trevor-Bauer from the Arizona Diamondbacks. In fact, the main guy the Indians gave up that year was Sin-Soo Choo, who was going to become a free agent at the end of the season. He went to the Reds. It gets very complicated. Point being, though, out of that draft, 2 picks and 1 trade gave them Lindor and Bauer. Corey-Kluber, 2-time Cy Young Award winner. One of the greatest trades, frankly, almost made by any team in baseball history. Kluber was pitching in Class AA in the Texas League for the San Diego Padres. At this point in his career, he had even dropped off the top 30 prospect list, not of all baseball, but of the San Diego Padres. So in other words, at best, he was rated by Baseball America, which is kind of the Bible of prospects, number 31. The Indians traded Jake Westbrook. It was another 3-way deal. This was a Mark Shapiro trade. And Westbrook was going to become a free agent, and the Indians brought in this Corey-Kluber. And I remember talking to Chris Antonetti after that trade was made, and I go, what's the deal with Kluber? He said, well, first of all, Westbrook wasn't going to re-sign with us. He said Kluber, at this point, was leading the Texas League in strikeouts, although his ERA was climbing towards 4. If nothing else, we figure he's got a pretty good arm, but could maybe put him in the bullpen. Just goes to show. Now, it took 3 years after that for him to develop into a starter. So there it is. That's kind of a small deal. Then you turn on Michael-Brantley, the player to be named later. And when the Indians traded CC Sabathia to the Milwaukee Brewers, they got back Matt Laporta. Matt Laporta was supposed to be the key to that trade. First baseman, home run hitter. In fact, I liked getting Laporta, but at that point what happened to him is he began to have some hip problems, which then turned into a kind of a degenerative hip thing, and he played with the Indians briefly, couldn't stay healthy. Last I heard, Laporta is working in the banking business down in Florida. And then finally, Jose-Ramirez, who wasn't even considered a top prospect in the Dominican Republic. Paul Mirabelli, the Indians' director of international scouting, told me that one of their bird dog scouts said, you've got to look at this guy. And he said Ramirez was playing second base. Now, it doesn't sound like a big deal to us, but in the Dominican, all the good prospects who are not pitchers, they're either in center field or they're the shortstops. They are not second basemen. Second baseman is considered, like the detention home, or it's where the guy's not that good. In fact, Paul Mirabelli sent me this picture of this diamond, I guess you could call it. Basically, there's a lot of dirt and kind of weeds there with a donkey in the outfield grazing. He said, it's not the exact field where I first saw Jose-Ramirez, but it was a field, and there was a donkey grazing in the outfield in between games. $50,000 for Jose-Ramirez. So you turn around, you look at the 5 All-Stars. 50 grand for Jose, out of the Dominican, nobody cares about him. Corey-Kluber, buried in the San Diego farm system, they could care less about him. He had dropped off their prospect list. Michael-Brantley, who the Brewers liked, but he's the player to be named later, and he wasn't even the first prospect that the Indians targeted. It was Matt Laporta. Trevor-Bauer, who the Indians liked from his days at UCLA, they kept trying to trade for him. They finally did. And then finally, frankie-Lindor, who they took in the 2011 draft, number 7. And basically, there was an internal debate for a little while. There's a guy named Javier Baez, who the Cubs took right after that. Do they take Baez or take Lindor? Baez is a good player, too. But I think you could see frankie-Lindor was better. And what does all this add up to, along with 5 All-Stars, is that the front office has done a pretty good job putting this stuff together.